Hello, today is February the 6th, 2010, and my name is Eloisa Echazabal. I'm a former Pedro Pan child, and here's my colleague and friend.
My name is Carmen Romanage, and I'm also a Pedro Pan child.
And here we are with Lloydine McGuinn, who used to be Msgr Walsh's administrative assistant for many, many years. And here's Vicky Villaronga, who worked also in the Catholic Welfare Bureau, which later became Catholic Charities for many, many years. And we're just going to be chatting here about everything that they did in their positions and for the Pedro Pan program. Okay, so
thank you for opening your house to us.
Thank you.
Yes, time to be with us.
Yes, thank you for sharing all these things with us. Okay, let's see. Would you please tell us when you started working at Catholic Charities and, for how long you worked there?
September 25th, 1958 until December 31st, 2002.
Right. And did you work there? Did you work for Msgr Walsh all that time?
Always.
That's good. He hired you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Since day one.
Since day one.
Even before the Cuban program.
Oh,
Even before,
because
sure.
in 58.
Even before the actual installation of the Diocese of Miami, which occurred in October 7th of 58.
And then what was Msgr doing at that time, when you started working?
He was Assistant Director of Catholic Charities for, actually it was the Diocese of St. Augustine.
Oh, right.
And then when the diocese was split, he was still Assistant Director to Msgr Rastatter for the Diocese of Miami. And then he was appointed 3 months later as Diocesan Director of Catholic Charities.
Vicky, how about you? When did you start working for Catholic Charities and for how long?
I started with Catholic Welfare Bureau Cuban Children's Program in August 17, 1962. Okay? And I worked there until 74. That was when most of the Cuban program was closed. There were only 3 people remained, Lloydine, Cuartas, and Paul Heller, right? Those were the only Heller, wasn't it?
Yes,
Paul
Paul
Heller
Heller.
was the one in charge of the accountant. Okay, so at that time it was moved to South Florida Donado program, which was a program under Catholic Charities under Msgr Walsh, but was not with Pedro Pan anymore. I mean, that was with kids that drop school, and then they get training, and
It was funded by the Department of Labor.
Department of Labor.
yeah, but it was under Msgr
It
Walsh.
was one of the first poverty programs in the United States.
And it was a fantastic program to run. Thousands and thousands of young kids that, because they gave them training for work, but they gave them, going back to school again. So I was there then until they start, those programs start getting no more funds from the government and all these things. So back in 85, the person that was working for Msgr as secretary, which was Pedro Pan, was going to move to another position. So I went to work again with Msgr until his retirement in 2001, right? 2000. Retired. No, in 1996, I'm sorry.
Right.
He retired in 1996. But then I stayed with Msgr Wednesday, which was the one that was the director until I retired in 2005.
Very good. Let's see, Lloydine, what was the part of your position that was directly involved with the unaccompanied Cuban children's program and Operation Pedro Pan? I guess
I'm
most
secretary to Msgr, administrative assistant to him. When things were beginning, there were calls from Washington, giving permission to do one thing or another. I just, anything I could to assist.
That's right. I bet that was something different, you know, like all of a sudden, you know, needing to take care of all these children that were coming from Cuba.
Well, you know, the agency, Catholic Welfare Bureau, had child welfare programs and had foster care, had adoption, that sort of thing. So it just meant we segregated like the Cuban program separate from there for budgetary reasons and that kind of thing. And it was establishing residences for the Cuban children, hiring the children or the house parents, that sort of thing, change the program.
At the beginning, I didn't know it was going to be that big.
No,
We didn't have an idea what it was going to involve. So, okay, yeah, interesting. To be there since the beginning, number. So how about, can you tell us something on Msgr Walsh personality, because you were involved so closely with him? About, you know, what do you think
He
it
is a
was?
saint. He is a saint.
The saint, yeah.
He had a very gentle personality. His heart was open to everyone, everything. He was a man of vision. I never met another person that had the ability to have vision of what was ahead or what could be ahead. He was just an amazing individual.
He was a workaholic.
Yeah, workaholic, yeah.
He was a workaholic. She was a workaholic. I had to do it. We never had a time frame to work. He was never tired. He didn't care if it's Sunday, Saturday, midnight. He could call in the middle of the night and say, Vicky, do we have Jose Fernandez in the program? Monsignor? Yeah, we had like 10, 5.
Jose Fernandez.
You know, but he was like that. I mean, you know, at any time. And he was very concerned about the image he had to give in public and everything, you know. He was very concerned about the treatment to the kids. He never liked this kind of problems with children that happened. And as a matter of fact, we never had.
That's right.
You know, we never had.
So you would describe him as a saint too, or a workaholic?
Oh, definitely. He was really, I would say that he was one of the smartest persons I had ever met.
Very smart, yeah.
He could handle everything.
On his feet.
Finance, economics. He would, Msgr Walsh was not only the main figure for the church under the kids program. He was involved in everything in the community.
Yeah.
That was the time of the riots. That was the time of the Cuban,
The
not the Haitians, the black people, you know,
There was some
the
riots.
community relations
Civil
war,
rights.
everything. And Msgr was respected all over the place. If something happened, most strange place in the community, they would contact Msgr. And he was #1 there to, you know, make the people. He was involved with the relations among different religions, among Jewish relations. I mean, he got into everything. But as she
He
said,
never said no.
as she said, he had the vision.
The vision,
He
that's
was not the
the
kind of person, okay, we handle the kids, don't worry, we put the kids here or there and that's it. No. What is good for the kids, what is going to be good in the future? What other program can we start in the future? That's what we had with the housing. That's what we had, you know, the Marian Center. That's what he had a dream that never came true. The one about the house for the retarded children, for the parents. Remember the adults? I mean, he wanted everything.
You looked ahead.
Yes.
Yes, and you really couldn't stump him.
No.
I'm sure.
You see he was very
Yeah.
I would sit at a table, you know, listening to him, and no matter what anyone asked him, he could respond appropriately to the question. He was extremely well read. He read everything, especially historical things. He knew everything about all these other countries that, honest to goodness, I never heard of. He knew about them. He read about them. He knew what the problems were. He was an amazing man.
I heard he was very good at math. Yeah, solving math problems.
Yes, he was. But other things were more his than that.
He was also studying to get his PhD, right, in
Yeah.
the University of Miami. But I guess he couldn't finish it.
I truly don't know why he didn't. I know he was writing papers.
Maybe he was busy. Maybe
I
he was
was
so
typing.
He
busy.
was very
Papers.
busy. Yeah. You were typing his papers, yeah.
But I just don't know. I think perhaps he thought that the PhD wasn't as important as doing something else.
Oh, right.
Although he had worked toward it, you know, and he always felt that no matter what he did, it was helpful to him. So whatever he did, it just didn't get the paper, didn't matter, because all of that time spent was helpful to him
Oh, sure.
in some way.
Yeah, but I guess personally, you know, he didn't take time for himself.
Yeah,
You know, he was involved in so
it
many.
was not something he had to have, like, you know,
Yeah.
other people, oh, if I don't get my doctorate degree, I'm
Yeah,
not.
I know. He never
That
mentioned
wasn't-
anything like that. He was always like trying to help other people, and that's very. How do you think Monsignor felt about his accomplishments with the Pedro Pan children and
About his wife.
about his accomplishments with the Pedro Pan children, with Keyboard Children program?
He was very proud that, you know, he had been able to, and he didn't take all the credit, because everyone around the United States that assisted him in doing the work, he was very grateful. And so many of the young people really went on to do so much with their lives. And he was very, very proud of them.
He was
Very
always proud of his
Yeah.
kids.
And I know,
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the Pedro Pans, later when they got married, you know, they want Monsignor to baptize their children.
He married
and
them,
they married
he baptized the children, you know, he's buried
He
a
buried,
lot of
he
them.
buried them.
Um,
He buried them. Yeah.
So
It was really,
Vicky, did he mention anything special to you about the Pedro Pan children? How proud he was? of
He-
anything you remember?
he loved the program, he loved the kids. He always, the only thing I remember at one point is that somebody mentioned if he would do it again, and we're talking maybe 30, 40 years after that, he would do it again, considering the time now, and he said no. I mean, not that he wouldn't do the same thing, do that kind of program, he said, we would never had the kind, and it was true because everything was secret. Nobody knew how the thing worked at the beginning, and that's very hard to say. Everybody wants to, oh, I know
Right.
that, oh, they're doing that, oh, she's making the visas. Oh, at that time, nobody knew what they were doing, and that was what made the program
So
work.
special
work the
and
way.
so.
And so
And he said
successful.
that's impossible to do it, and that's the way he meant it. I mean, not that he wouldn't do it, that's the way he meant
Yeah, that it wouldn't be possible to do it today, the
No.
same, or, you know,
No.
when he was living.
it. It was,
This-
you know, it
that
was
was-
a different, it was a different group. It was, I mean, it was like I say, nobody knew how the visas were given. Yeah, some people knew that they went to this school in Cuba and they gave them the visa. That's as far as they went. But how it was working there and how it was working here,
Step 1, step 2,
No.
step 3. That.
And people involved,
nobody knew.
no one knew.
Nobody here. I mean, the house parents, they never said a word about how the kids, you know, were nothing. Everything was good. And that was not a thing that you have to keep as a secret. It was people do it that way.
Yeah.
And you don't find that these days.
And the
You don't
median
find-
people here at that time respected what was happening, the importance of keeping it quiet.
They cooperated.
And they respect him, that's
Right,
another
and
thing.
they kept it quiet for years.
Can I ask how you felt about being part of this program? What are your feelings about having been a part of this program? Now,
I say that I felt, or I still don't feel anything special. It came about, I mean, it was the time this needed to be done. I think I would have walked to the end of the earth for Msgr. I respected him so much. But, you know, I never considered myself extra for being part of it. I am very grateful that I had a chance to work in such a program and work with such a human being. But other than that,
I think that was the feeling of most of the people that work in the program. Most of the people, they never took it, you know, as I'm doing this or I'm, you know, everybody did it. They loved what they were doing. They loved to get involved with the kids, to help the kids, to help Msgr. But everybody did it because that's what we were supposed to do. And that was one of the things he said, that you're not going to find it. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's true. People want the famous things now. You know, I have to be in the newspaper and please come and make the interview. None of us will never interview for anything.
Thank you now that you were
involved. But I'm
we know you were very instrumental.
I'm talking about social workers. I mean, we had tremendous social workers, you know, good teams of them. And they worked, oh my gosh, they didn't have times.
Yeah, about the social workers, I had heard that at the beginning of the program, Msgr was worried because there were not enough social workers to work.
at that time,
Right.
What social workers were around, most of them were working. You know, it was a time when we needed social workers, and so the social workers were there. But he recruited as fast as he could with the new Cuban people that came, that if you were a social worker, he wanted to talk to you. And that's the way he got, and also then other people, you know, who, well, I know this one, I know that one, and that's how he really got the social workers. They had to be bilingual.
Sure. Because I heard also that he was instrumental in helping Barry University create their School of Social Work. Because he
was
that,
involved.
Yes, he was involved
in that. But they were already well on their way. You know, academia being what it is. You know, they were doing, and actually their first, not the first dean of social work, the second dean of social work was involved with our agency for many years. For many years.
What about after the program was over, archives, all the files and documents and archives of the Pedro
Good
Pan.
files.
Your what?
My good files, my folders.
Your folders, your files. I know. They were eventually.
That was my job.
That was your job. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my job. I was file clerk, and
Wow,
the one that was my file clerk, Cornelia.
Yeah.
She, when they start cutting, she was one of the first ones. They put me as the registrar. And we had to do everything. That department handled all the registration, the transfers, the discharge, and all the filing. So all those records went to
They were in storage.
storage, and then later to family.
But Barry was really, it's kind of, I call it kind of recent.
Yeah.
I think that was in 1995.
Yeah.
About them.
Right. And do you know how was that decision made? Why would they move to Barry? They just didn't have any more room to keep
As far as I know, it was solely Msgr Walsh's decision. Solely his decision.
He thought that they were going to be better.
I think that maybe in his mind, he was afraid that things can be. Msgr was a person that wants to keep everything. Every single record, he keep it. And I'm not talking about Cuban kids only.
No, everything.
Everything. I mean, things that nobody cared, he kept it. I mean, information and knowledge, everything.
And you'd be
He
surprised how many times we had to go back to that.
And he always said,
Not
don't
a vision,
throw,
you.
don't throw anything away. Keep everything. And
But he also, I think part of why he made that decision was partly because of the School of Social Work. The fact that they encouraged their students to do research
At Barry.
at Barry. He wanted the files to be available in some confidential way that information contained in the files might be used for research purposes, that sort of thing. And that's why, and at that time, Barry was the only place.
That's right.
And as a Pedro Pan is important, has been important to all of us too. All those files we did, they were very emotional for all of us to be able to go on business and see.
we laugh now, but when we started, we didn't remember, when we started, the registration was
By 5, I think.
like that. There
Five
was
by
only,
five.
there were only 2 desks. The wall was against you in the back and 2 chairs. So this lady was there with one of the secretaries, and I had to stay standing up all the time because there was no nice chair. And every morning, there he came, George or Tim, whoever came from the airport,
George Walsh.
or his brother, or Pascual, sometimes Pascual too. They came with all those bags full of passports, and there it went, just not registered. And nothing was lost, not a single paper, everything was kept until the
Yeah,
last.
tell us about that process. That's very interesting because I have seen the log that George Walsh kept. And so how was that? He would bring everything to the
We
office.
raised the kids at
He
the
would pick them
airport.
up at the airport.
Okay, so the
On the
ones
wall.
that went with relatives, he put there to
Yes.
whom they.
Yeah, right.
The ones that came to the program, he just put it, say, in a van for one of the places,
Right.
Florida Sea, Canada, Matecumbo, Paloma, whatever it was. And then those passports, they were sent the next day to the central office.
Oh, they were not in the camp, but in the central office.
No, that was in the central office. So in central office, we made the registration, we opened those files, and then we put the key, I mean, whatever they said the key was going to be, that's what we started. So the next room was what they call the transportation department, which was they were in charge of making the arrangements. Getting the tickets, whatever, to send the kids out. So, but those passports, they remained there. They were never given to the kids until the day the kid was discharged, that was the day.
Yeah. When you mean this, because for example, in my case, I was taken to Kendall, and I was in Kendall 7 days. Then I was sent to Buffalo, New York. So did my passport stay in Miami, or that was sent to Buffalo?
It was in Miami.
Oh, how interesting.
Unless there was
In a specific.
a special
Yeah.
reason that the agency in Buffalo would have requested it. And then it was sent to them certified mail.
Right.
Yeah, or when
And-
they were discharged.
And, right,
They were discharged.
but if it would be sent, but then returned to us until such time as you were discharged.
Right. So then, after 9 long months in Buffalo, I came back to Miami because to reunite with my parents. Would have been the point where the passport was returned to me and my parents
Right,
in Miami.
and they would have signed that they received
Right,
it.
right. I remember in the law, we should have brought a copy of the law.
Yeah.
There was, maybe I'll ask you later, because there was, like, so, whose initials would be LC? Because by, I think there were some LC, but at the end of some of the lines of, I'll have to show it. It was an LC.
It could have been Louise Cooper.
Louise Cooper, yeah. What was she?
She passed away.
Was she also a worker?
She was a social worker.
Oh. She was a social
Maybe it
worker.
was
And I think she met some of the first flights.
That
She
would
did.
be,
Yeah.
because the time I was there, I don't remember those.
I don't remember CNC, but she
Right.
would have met some of the flights.
So even though the children were in Buffalo or in any other state, being under the Cuban.
Oh,
yeah.
Right,
Oh,
so-
yes.
And he
But
wanted to make
that's-
sure everything, the
that's
passport
the
were
way-
here, I think he wanted to make sure everything was.
No, but that's one of the reasons that what she was saying a few minutes ago. Monsignor was not the main figure for these kids. Most of the children that were sent out, they never heard of Monsignor Walsh.
That's right.
And
I never.
they-
Yeah.
I never
And
knew.
even today, they don't know how the things happen. And maybe they are grateful to the ones over there that picked them up, and they feel that those were the ones that did it. Okay, so Monsignor never looked for, this is my name, I'm the one that I'm doing this. No. So that's one of the things that we said, try to keep in touch with those kids and try to explain who brought them here, why did they came here, because that was not,
Especially at the beginning. No.
Yeah.
no, and even
Yes.
later.
Even until the flight stopped,
Yeah,
you know,
they didn't
he
know.
never, you know,
He just did it, and he didn't. I don't
he did
think-
what he needed to do
That's it.
to make it possible for the children to have the visas and be
And-
able to come. And when they came, he saw that they were cared for.
And one
That's for
thing,
sure.
as soon as they came to fill out the papers to pay the parents,
Right.
because that was one of the
That
main
was the
things he
purpose of
said.
it.
The parents.
Kids are not here for adoption. Kids are there.
Here.
The kids are going
For
to
the
be reunited
parents to
with the
come.
parents when they come. And as soon as those passports were there, we start, claiming the parents.
I have, I have a question for both of you. How do you think Monsignor Walsh would have liked to be remembered? Towards you. How do you think he would like to be remembered?
That he was a holy priest. He was faithful to his church. That he truly believed he was put here to carry out God's work, and he was faithful to that until the end.
How about you?
I agree 100%. She was taking some thoughts that I was having about it. I remember that was after the Cuban program, the time of Catholic Health Services. That was under Monsignor Walsh. That was one of the streams to handle the housing and the nursing homes and everything. When it was taken from him, not a nice way, a lot of Pedro Pans and a lot of people in the community started calling him and saying that they were going to the press and they were going to back up Monsignor or anything. And at that time I was a secretary and I kept giving those messages. One day he came to the door and he said, let me tell you one thing, Vicky. And I said, oh Lord, it comes now. So let me tell you one thing. You tell all of them that I'm very grateful, but that they should remember that before anything, I am a priest. And I will always obey what the bishop said.
Obedience was
I
very
don't
strong.
care what they do. I don't care how they feel. They said, Monsignor, please, tell them that I am first a priest. And that's the end. And that was it.
Wow.
You never hear a word from
A saint, like you said, because
and that's why I said he did everything because he thought
Yeah.
It was his love of God
and
and faithfulness that
he was happy when the kids did great things in life or whatever, and he was very proud of all his boys or girls or whatever. But he was he
It
always
was
dreamed of
never
the
for
children's
personal
village.
gain.
He wanted a children's village. He wanted those houses with the big kids, the young kids, and things that didn't work out.
Let me ask you, there's something that I wanted to know too about the process. You said that as soon as the children arrived, the office started the process to claim the parents from Cuba, right? The parents from Cuba. After the children and the parents were reunited, well, no, let me backtrack. Half of the 14,000 children, when they arrived in Miami, they had people waiting for them, like relatives or friends of the family.
Yeah.
Was the process to follow up with those children to make sure that they were well, or once they were united, once they were picked up by family?
Do you mean
that was
if the office get in touch with them?
Well, like was there a social worker that?
No.
There was no time for
No,
that.
no,
Okay,
there was
no,
no time,
no,
there was
and
no
Because
person.
someone had told me that
If it came to Msgr's knowledge that a certain family was having difficulty
Right.
and they couldn't take care of the children any longer, that they, were relatives, they couldn't take care of them, he always referred them to the state of Florida, because in the state of Florida, as in most states, Department of Children is the first person
Right.
that you go to. Then they would be referred to Catholic Welfare or Church World Service
Right.
or whatever other agency was
Because-
involved. But he couldn't just take the child in.
Right. So once, if the children arrived from Cuba and relatives were meeting them, that was the end of the Pedro Pan file
In
for
a
that
way,
child.
yes, but sometimes, maybe after all that, the relatives, were
Would
able
bring
them.
to bring
I
the
heard that.
kids, and then we took kids abroad.
Right.
Yeah.
If they were referred through the
Like,
Florida state.
I remember
Okay.
one case that the father, the mother died when they had the fourth kid. And I wanted to adopt it. She didn't let me do it. Then, the father he was bad. I mean, he couldn't.
He lost his
couldn't
wife.
control. I mean, he lost
Yeah,
his
he
wife.
wasn't
The other three, the four kids were just
Doorsteps.
doorsteps. I mean, they were. So they came to the brother, but then they kept in touch, with the father,
Right.
with the relatives. They were placed with a relative.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it was all done.
But I mean,
In
that was,
cooperation with the
yeah,
state.
yeah, that was, as I said, I mean, it was not like you came to knock at the door
Right,
and
right.
then they are,
Right.
That
I
was
think that.
Anything else that you would like that we didn't touch on, that you think is important for the next generation to know?
the only thing I can say is I wish for the children that they are not children anymore. They will know who he was.
Just for the record, today is Saturday, February 6, 2010, and here we're with Lloydine McGuinn and Vicky Villaronga.
Thank you.